Thank you all. Thank you for this opportunity again to share what God has laid on my heart. Tonight, my assignment is simple. So I've been told to share how we've been able to navigate our first year of marriage, which is myself and my wife Audrey. We married for a year and a half, and we had the privilege of courting for about a year before we got married. So um, I hope we will be a blessing to especially those that are looking forward to marrying, and even those that are already married, because there's always a thing or two to learn from, especially even the early ones. Like there are some foundations that are built in the early years of marriage that you're supposed to carry throughout marriage. That's one thing I've learned. Even when you look at like the church in Ephesus, Jesus told them that they have abandoned their first love, which is something that they picked up in their early years, in their early union with Christ. So, stuff like that is something you're supposed to carry through. So you see marriages that, after some years, they've lost some things, they've lost some touches. So I'm hoping that whatever I share tonight, as far as how we've navigated our first year of marriage, be a blessing to everyone. So quickly, so like I said, Audrey and I courted for a year, and then we got married in December of 2022. And before we married, we listened to all kinds of advice from everyone we thought would be a blessing to us, and we heard a lot. Some of the things we heard was like the first year can be one of the hardest years, because you're now coming together. Two different people from different backgrounds. You're now about to learn about each other really as you're living together, how to cope with each other. You're seeing each other's weaknesses and strengths and all of that stuff. Someone was like, was our hardest year. And so we were coming in, a bit skeptical and still prayerfully hoping that, God would make it, a blessing, and especially make us pick up the things that we need to pick up. Because I strongly believe that how you start can really determine how you even end. So that was key to me. And by the grace of God, our first year turned out to be successful. It was good by the grace of God. It was great by the grace of God. And we learned to lay and we're still laying foundations. And some of the key things that I've picked up along the way is that has contributed to the success is what I'm gonna share. So for me, especially as a man, during the courtship season, I was experiencing a real change. Changes in my schedule, my social life, and life in general. Because now you have someone that you're gonna build your life around after building your life without them for so many years. So it was quite different. It was an interesting dynamic. It was tough at times, because tough in the sense that it was a change and I had to change things, right? But then I met a brother-in-law actually, who's somewhat of a marriage counselor, and he shared a mystery with me that changed everything. He termed it the mystery of oneness, because I was really feeling that change. So that mystery has to do with, like, primarily we see it in the triune Godhead, which is the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. They're one, right? They're one in purpose. They're one in many things, right? So, and then we also see, as Jesus said in Matthew 19:5-6, um, for this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife. The two will become one flesh, so they're no longer one. Sorry, they're no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, let no man or no one separate. Right. So that was what he showed me, that um, marriage is a great representation of that mystery which is seen in the Trinity, and even our oneness with God in the Spirit also falls under that mystery. So that showed me a very high purpose of marriage, and that it was bigger than me, even though I didn't know that it was a bigger purpose. But this unveiling this mystery to me really locked me into something much bigger. So it was bigger than me just wanting a wife, and so I really put my mind to submit into that mystery, right? And so this is where I started being more accepting of the sacrifice involved, and trust also comes in. And I'll explain it more as I go on. So in a sense, I had to let go of like how I saw myself as an individual, and embrace a new unit that God was forming, that I was a part of. So knowing myself as Alexi, that like I was this, and I still am a very ambitious person that likes to run around and get things accomplished. Kind of had to place the person I had become on the altar, for God to now show me or show us what the new unit that I was now a part of was to become like, or was to be doing. So practically speaking, like say in the morning, I wake up and I run out of the house and I'm going to get things done, right? So now I have to cut off some even meetings, some business moves, and spend time with my wife to figure out this new path, to figure out what God really wants to do with this unit, right? And that's a serious struggle with a lot of marriages, especially early married couples. They don't Many don't take the time or even get the luxury of just, in a sense, allowing themselves to know exactly what they're to become as that new unit. So they'll marry and they'll just keep doing, oh, after a honeymoon, okay, I'm going back to work. You to go back to work. When we come back, we see ourselves in the house, and we do what we have to do. But it's like you can tell there's still that individual person and two individuals living together as opposed to people becoming one unit. So yeah, I had to submit myself to this new way, and it really involved trusting God. And wisdom came in and gave strategies, including like delegating. And it's like the more I submitted myself to this oneness, this mystery of oneness and sacrifice, whoever I had become to be rolled into this new thing, the more it's like it gave God the opportunity to do what he wanted to do with this new unit, right? And the more he showed me what I was becoming or what we were becoming. um I mean, it affected the way I think, even the way I dress, still doing, even and the way I represent myself in social circles. It affected everything. And it's powerful, and a lot of men struggle with this, or even women too, because of who they are, what they become, what they've learned. And once they get into a relationship, they still hold on to these things. They still want to project their beliefs, they still want to project their identity, right? But really, all this kind of has to be placed on the altar for God to recreate something new out of the couple. And it involves yieldedness, it involves submission, it involves trust, because you don't really know what you're about to become. Everything you've built up to this point is can become something you never knew, can become something you never even thought would become, right? Because now God it's kind of like the new creation. It's like God is saying, he's creating the one new man out of the two, like when Paul was talking about the Jews and the Gentiles. So that's what I had to submit myself to. And I saw it pop up in um especially our belief systems, where I picked up early on how, and again, I'm talking about some of the things that I I've picked up that really contributed to the success of our first year of marriage. Picked up early on that, beliefs can play such a major role in how you two become formed into that oneness. Because once you become you and Damola always says this, like, once you interact with people, once you're with people, there will be misunderstandings. That's how humans are, right? So I realized if I wasn't careful, unnecessary arguments and even tensions can come from what I believe or what my wife believes that I don't agree to, right? And even the Bible says, "How can two walk unless they agree?" That's Amos 3:3. So I had to pick up that, you know, um, because you're new, each one is trying to, in a sense, usher in their beliefs, like glamorously, like very objectively. Like, in other words, this is what I believe. This is what I've believed for all these years, or whether it's new or not. This is what I believe to be true, and they want you to also even believe it because that's what they believe. And so I was like, okay, before, and so when things like that would happen, I would let myself understand that, before I found this thing to be what, like, my wife believes, I loved her and enjoyed her presence or her company. So I need not allow me now being exposed to it cause me to maybe not enjoy her presence or even, if possible, love her less. So I just realized, and in fact, I also realized that a lot of beliefs they don't really impact much. Like, you will find couples arguing over things for a long time, and you're like, why are you arguing over that? So you find out the real problem will be the fact that, none of them are willing to lay down either their pride or their ego or whatnot. So then I told myself, beliefs are not what, especially, Christians coming together, each one have this doctrine laid in their hearts, this is what I believe about how you're supposed to do this, how you're supposed to do that. I realized it's not really necessary. And then I had these scriptures to back up the way I believed about these things. So Philippians 3:15, where Paul um says, "Therefore let us, as many as are mature, have this mind. And if in anything you think otherwise, God will reveal even this to you. Nevertheless, to the degree that we have already attained, let us walk by the same rule. Let us be of the same mind." So in a sense, Paul was saying, because over here he's talking about, running the race, forgetting what's behind him, pressing on. He's saying, everything he's talked about, anyone that's mature should have this mindset. But if you don't have it, or you don't, you think otherwise, God will reveal this to you. God will reveal it to you. So then I was like, okay, all right, I might have a belief, I might have a way of a mindset that maybe my wife might not agree to, or she might think otherwise. Okay, that too God can reveal to her. I don't have to, shove it down her throat, like, hey, you have to believe it this way. And in fact, I realize most times when it's me trying to, like, push it on her, it never goes through. It's more so when either I take it in prayer or I just let it be. That may be late on. It's not all the time, but sometimes, depending on how important the thing is, I guess, to God, it will come back that either she believes, or even I might find out I was the one who was wrong. But the wisdom was to not make it an argument, because then I also, one of the scriptures I also have as a pillar of this way that I picked up was Proverbs 17:14. Sleep, so stop before a dispute breaks out. And I early on, like how Jesus was telling the Ephesian church, like, keep that passion burning. One of the things that really choke it is when you just keep having quarrels and fights and tensions and all that nonsense, right? So then it was, okay, whenever I have pick up that, okay, this thing is looking like it's turning into an argument, all right, just stop it. Just find a way to either be wise about how you approach it so it doesn't turn into a full-blown dispute. I picked that up, and it was like, okay, if anything, the belief that maybe I have concerning that thing might not be even as important. If anything, our love. And I remember even Apostle Arumi talking about one time he had a misunderstanding with his wife, and being such a man of a man that can really articulate words that he is. He won the argument. He goes into the bathroom, and God tells him basically, like he's off, and whatever he has to do to make sure there's peace in this home, it's what's important. So I picked stuff like this up, and I realized most of the time it's better to make sure love is reigning than to try to be right. And so it was like, okay, whatever the case, if I'm right, if I'm wrong, whatever the case, let love prevail. Let love be. Let make sure we are at peace. We're still enjoying each other's company and whatnot. Okay. All right. So yeah. So and then I also want to touch on trust. Right. So because once you're now this new unit, we now had to trust God for this new process. And then it's one of the best decisions, especially as a man, that I've made for the marriage was to trust God for every move and basically seek God's guidance for every move, because if this is his project, then he knows the plan he has for it. So whatever move we have to make, whether it's where we're going to live, whether it's what we're going to invest in, what we're going to do, what work someone or both of us are going to do, it has to be from God, because this is his project, and it's two people he's brought together that he's saying no one should separate. So if anything, those two people should make it him doing whatever he has to do to keep it going. And that's how we've been living. And when I realized that the systems of this world have been set up in such a way to basically negatively affect the things that matter the most, and marriage is definitely one of the targets. I mean, you look at the statistics, it shows you how divorces are so high nowadays, including Christian divorces. So marriage is one of the targets, because in marriage, there's such a force that really can affect the enemy, which is the power of agreement and love. So he really is against it. So yeah, I really made sure that I seek God's guidance concerning whatever decision we had to make. Also picked up that one of the things that chokes, like love and affection out of marriages, even at the early stages, is basically financial woes, finances. Basically, the system of this world is set up so couples are really pushed into situations where they can't even enjoy the love they have, because maybe one or both of them has to work and get some money. So right from the get-go, I knew we had to get enough time for each other. So part of it was to find out from Elohim what we're to do, even to get to create income that won't affect how we even spend time with each other. And God being faithful, he's really provided ways, and he's still providing ways. Basically finding out from God how he wants things to be done. And I realized we have to guard marriage, guard basically this, in a sense, like a garden of Eden, like God has given us, like he gave Adam to guard it. And part of it is seeking his guidance so we don't, and his plans, so we don't fall into the enemy's trap. And maybe I could share a bit of our story, so we see maybe someone will be inspired by some of the ways we've trusted God and how God has really come through for us. and maybe encourage some people. I'm currently in Ghana. So my wife joined me before we got married. Courted for a year, and even when we weren't sure where we were going to. I wasn't even sure where I was going to live after marriage, as far as maybe be here or be in the States or wherever. It was just okay. Looks like this is what God is doing. I'm just gonna trust it and take it from here. So she joined. We courted for a year, and once we decided to get married, early while we were courting, um, we got the budget for the wedding, and I seen the budget. And at that time I was running a business, and this business was enough to take care of me, but um taking care of us as a couple would have been something different. Just put it that way. And so I saw the wedding budget that we had, contacted vendors, and I was like, oh wow, okay, so God, I guess you're gonna have to figure this out. And we trusted God. We believed, obviously we were working, but when we were done with the wedding, by through favor, um, our most of our expenses were covered by, family members and even friends that we didn't ask for. It was all because of favor and just trusting God that He was gonna take care of it. In fact, even during the wedding season, I was sowing more than paying for the wedding expenses, because I knew what that could do. And so right after the wedding, um, maybe a few weeks before the wedding, we didn't even know where we were going to live after the wedding because of some situations. And we did the wedding, we did the honeymoon, we came, and we literally were driving around in a car, looking for a place to live. And we were trusting God. It wasn't like we were struggling. We were just trusting God for the next move. And God being faithful again, He gave us an amazing place to be. And it has been trusting God and moving in faith. Because like I said, if it's His project, then you have to trust Him for how things are going to play out. Not everything you might not figure everything out. In fact, most of the time you wouldn't know, especially it being two people coming together. It's, you kind of both have to tap into what God's plan is and just execute it. So you might not figure everything out, but you just trust, believe, and keep going as He's laid out the plan. And then the final thing I want to touch on is intimacy. Intimacy, which is obviously very key in marriages. I realized early on was you had to be very practical in how we even um, stop for each other, in a sense, whereby you can be, like I said early on, the systems have been set up so things can be so busy, like you're running around, or you might even be there but you're not there because there's so much going on. And so just intentionally stopping for each other and understanding that some of these things like matter more than the other things that we keep running after. Like you read Jesus's words, this pattern of thinking. And like Jesus said something in John 13:35, that by this everyone will know that you're my disciples if you love one another. Your love for one another will prove to the world that you're my disciples. And I strongly believe that Christian marriages, which is family being the foundation of society, and basically marriages is like the what springs out families. I believe Christian marriages has to be one of the greatest witnesses of the love of God. And if we're going to be true disciples of Christ, then our marriages has to reflect that love. And so personally, sometimes I even wonder how unbelievers are able to marry for long. And it's very interesting to me because, like when, especially before I got married, when I studied what Paul described like love to be in 1 Corinthians 13:4, where he mentions love to be patient, kind, doesn't envy, doesn't boast, is not proud, doesn't dishonor others. Um, it's not self-seeking. It's not easily angered. Keeps no record of wrongs. Doesn't delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. Always protects. Always trusts. Always hopes. Always perseveres. You read what love really is, and you meditate on it, and you realize all the while you have basically thought of what love you thought of love in the wrong way, or in a small way, right? Like it's beyond maybe the strong feeling obviously you have for someone. So after you marry, you do the whole wedding, you enjoy the wedding, you enjoy your honeymoon, then you come home, you start living together, and you realize there's other things involved, right? It's not just the love. So there are things like chores, okay, responsibility. So had to learn quickly early on how to balance things. So how to and it's all love. So once I understand that love is patient, love is kind, what it's not self-seeking, all this stuff. When I'm doing even chores, or I'm handling responsibilities, I'm doing it out of love, knowing that it is part of love. Not just when I'm maybe hugging or touching my wife or enjoying their company is what love is, but with love I can be doing things and understanding that they are part of me demonstrating love. And so understanding this thing really helped, especially me, understanding the sacrifice involved in living with someone, so that you're not thinking, oh, I've done something, you too do something. No, the Bible says, husband loves your wife, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself. Give his all for her. So like when I'm doing something at home or for the family or for my wife, I'm not thinking, oh, I've put in uh 90%, you two put 10%, or I've put in, oh, I've been putting in this percentage, you two do something. No. So he gave himself, gave it all. So doing something, giving it all, it's all love. It's not self-seeking. It's kind. Do it all, and go all the way. And yeah, so these are some of the foundations that uh, we've really picked up in these early years. And the last thing I would say is just enjoying the process. We've really learned to enjoy the process, and it's been great. Taking time to have fun. This is an advantage, being with someone that you didn't have when you were single. So I realize, especially when I'm looking at some people that have married for long, you're seeing them and you're almost like, wow, is it that they just don't want to enjoy each other, or they've allowed so many, you know arrows to pierce them, to for them to just rid themselves of enjoying each other. And it's kind of sad, but all I know is, like Jesus told the Ephesian church, don't don't let go of that first love. There's some of these keys that keep it burning, keep that passion burning, so that you know 20, 50, 70 years from now you can be enjoying it. And that's some of the keys that I've shared with you. I hope it's been a blessing. Thank you again for the opportunity, and over to you.